And the April 15th, 2026 regular meeting of the Harris Central Appraisal District's Board of Directors. Members of the public wishing to address the board should have completed the sign-in sheet at the back of the room. You will be called upon to speak in the order that you signed in. When you begin, please state your name. Mr. Chairman, you may call the meeting to order.
Thank you, Tammy. Good morning. I'm Jim Robinson, the chairman of the Board of Directors for the Harris Central Appraisal District, and I hereby call this April 15th, 2026 regular board meeting to order. The time is now 9:32, and since I have not asked anybody in advance to lead the pledge, I'll go ahead and do that this morning. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. At this point, we'll do the roll call. As you can see, we have several members who are absent. Kathy Blooper Daniels, Tracy Jones.
Present.
Martina Lamont Dixon is absent. Erica McCutcheon.
Present.
Melissa Noriega.
Present.
Annette Ramirez is absent. Kyle Scott.
Present.
Mike Sullivan is absent. Myself, Jim Robinson, is present. At this point, we'll do the recognition of service awards and employees of the month. And Erica, if you would you please assist in that presentation?
On, test. Here we go. All right. Well, it's a great day. Today we have 9 service awards totaling 135 years of service, 4 10 years, 2 15 years, 2 20 years, and 1 25-year award. Awesome service. Plus, of course, our wonderful employees of the month that we have 4 of this month. So first service award recipient is one of HCAD's self-defense instructors, one of our rad instructors. She grew up here in Houston, went to Smiley High School, worked for the city of Houston for 9 years and led a drainage project there where she used HCAD's website as a resource. Curiosity led her to our careers page and she decided to give it a shot. She began in the phone bank 10 years ago, now an exemptions appraiser 3 in INA. She enjoys karaoke. She wouldn't tell me what her favorite song was, though, but loves karaoke, event decorating, and time with family and friends. That's Shan Gooden. Congratulations. All right. Our second service award recipient grew up in India, went to high school there, and earned a Bachelor and Master's of Science in Dairy Technology. He came to the U.S. in 2002, and he held several analyst roles across different companies, including property, business, e-commerce, and programmer analyst positions. A friend encouraged him to apply his skills at HCAD, so he did. He joined us 10 years ago, began as a commercial appraiser, now an appraiser 4 in review appraisal. He enjoys badminton, cooking, and helping his kids with his science projects. And I've got to say, he's got some very intelligent kids from the things he told us about, because I didn't understand half of it, but it was awesome. That's Satish Jasti. Sorry. Thanks, Satish. All right, our third service award recipient is working towards becoming a published author. Born in Houston, went to Forest Brook High School, and has a culinary background. She worked for Allstate for a while and found HCAD through her grandmother, who retired from the district. It's keeping in the family. Began as a telephone information specialist in INA and now an appraiser 1 in residential. She enjoys cooking, reading, and time with her children. Tiffany Utley. Hey, congrats, Tiffany. Absolutely. All right, our next 10-year service recipient is a native Houstonian, attended Klein Forest High School, began working in a 24-hour call center assisting with healthcare benefits. She heard about us from her best friend, HCAD employee Brandy Simpson. Hired on as an admin tech 1 in BIPD and recently promoted to an admin tech 4 there. Sleeping is her favorite pastime, which I could get with that. But she also enjoys reading, online shopping, and professional sporting events. Najee Washington. All right, our next recipient joined us 15 years ago. She's from Irving, Texas, and moved to Houston and attended Klein Forest High School. Before HCAD, she worked as a hairstylist at Regis Hair Salon. She found HCAD through a family friend and began as an admin tech in INA and is now an admin tech specialist 3 in residential's account resolution section. She enjoys the outdoors, cooking, and time with family. Ashley Henderson. All right, our next honoree worked for HCAD before he worked at HCAD. Figured that one out. He was born in Houston, went to Furr High School, attended San Jacinto College, earned an associate's degree in applied science for paralegals. Before coming to HCAD, he worked for the Harris County Attorney's Office for 8 years collecting penalties for the district. HCAD began collecting them themselves, and he became a perfect fit for HCAD. He began 15 years ago as a paralegal and is now an administrator 2 in legal services. He enjoys concerts, vinyl records, and time with his daughter, Michael Phelps. All right, our next recipient couldn't seem to get away from extreme weather. He was born in St. Catherine, Jamaica, went to an ag boarding school there. He knows a lot about plants and soil. He survived a Category 5 Hurricane Gilbert, which left the island devastated. He then moved to New York City and encountered a blizzard, and then he moved to Texas and got a combination of both. He earned a BS in health and nutrition and an MS in counseling at Prairie View A&M University. He worked at HEB's distribution center until Shireen Blake told him about HCAD. Yep. Began as an appraiser trainee in residential. Here 20 years later, he's now at Valuation Analyst 4 in commercial. Enjoys cooking Caribbean style and gardening. Linton Green. Did someone say your daughter's here, Linton? Is that true? His daughter's here? Where's his daughter at? Hey, you got a fantastic dad. Great dad. Thanks for being here. All right, the next recipient was frequently visited by HCAD employees. She's a native Houstonian, went to Marshall High School, and before she worked at HCAD, she worked at the Dress Barn across 290. While there, she met HCAD retirees Viola Hudson and Marilyn Morrison, asked where they worked, and they replied HCAD. Soon after, she came across retiree Taria Del Basti. who sealed the deal for her. She applied and was hired into INA 3 weeks later. Now a customer service specialist 3 and has dedicated 20 years to the division. She enjoys dancing and time with family. Maria Sanchez.
Thank you, appreciate that.
All right, our final service recipient has been with us for 25 years. She's a Houston native, went to Waltrip High School, attended Pentafaith Biblical Studies Institute, and got a bachelor's in biblical studies and a master's in Christian counseling. She worked as a temp at Compaq in records management. Her mother told her about HCAD, and she was so excited she applied for every position. She began in HCAD's former building as an operations support specialist and has advanced to a customer service specialist 2 in ARB support. She enjoys Zumba, writing poetry, and time with family. LaShawn Kennebrew. LaShawn, you got some serious support back there. I love it. I love it. All right. Congratulations, everybody. All right. So each month we recognize Employees of the Month for outstanding performance. They've got to show overall dependability, congeniality, special project work, quality and proficiency in their work, and leadership and teamwork. Our first Employee of the Month was born and raised in Houston, went to Forest Brook High School, attended Barclay Career School, and got certified in word processing. Before HCAD, she worked for the Houston Housing Authority. Her brother saw HCAD's hiring sign in front of the old Cameron Iron building, and he told the recipient about us, and she gave us a try. She works as a customer service specialist 3 in ARB operations, and her nomination describes her as the perfect example of reliability and excellent customer service. She trains newcomers and ensures property owners and agents are taken care of with high-quality results. Thank you, Cynthia Jones, Parks. All right, our second Employee of the Month is a Houston native, went to Nimitz High School, studied sociology at Prairie View A&M University, worked as a cashier at Home Depot for 5 years and needed better benefits. She searched the web and came across HCAD. She works as a valuation analyst 4 in BIPD, and her nomination states that she shows natural leadership by supporting coworkers, sharing knowledge, and helping to create a positive and collaborative work environment. Tiffany McKenty, and she's not here today, but we're going to have Robbie Moore come up and get the award. Thanks for accepting for her, Robbie. All right, our next recipient is a manager in HCAD's residential division. He's acknowledged today for his integrity, his respect and collaboration, and the fact that he's always eager to assist. He recently received a kudos letter from a colleague acknowledging his professional help with a hearing. We all know him, Edgar Robles. All right, our final Employee of the Month is from Houston, went to Wheatley High School, earned an associate's degree in welding at Houston Community College. She found HCAD through a staffing agency. Works as an exemption specialist in INA. She's recognized for going above and beyond. She stepped up to assist at the third floor front counter when we needed help. She provides excellent customer support to property owners and has handled questions and concerns with professionalism, patience, and care. It's Diara Sanders. We're all going to go. We're going to head up to the front.
Item 5 on today's agenda, it calls for comments from members of the public who have signed up to address the board. We do have one person who is signed up, and while security is bringing the speaker's podium up, those who have signed up to speak will be allowed 3 minutes to address the board. Speaker, we would ask that you observe the clock so you can keep track of the amount of time. However, Ms. Guerra will advise you when you have 30 seconds remaining, and again when your time has expired. And at that point, I'll thank you for your participation. Our only speaker signed up today is Mr. Steve Flores. Mr. Flores, if you would please state your name for the
Good
for the
morning.
record.
My name is Steve Flores, and I'm providing a formal administrative update for account 071-088-033-0006. The documents in your hands are notices of procedural requirements served via certified mail this past Monday to Adam Bogart, Teresa Terry, and Danielle Kirtland. These notices address the ongoing failure to certify the 2024 records and the quiet certification of the 2025 account on February the 6th. This service officially triggers the 10-day statutory window for the district to cure these violations before we escalate to the state controller. I request these documents be entered in today's permanent record. We look forward to a written response within 10 days. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Flores. Item 6 are reports from committee chairs. And first, let me ask Director Jones, is there anything to report from ARB committee this morning?
No, sir.
All right.
We
Nothing. I don't think that Budget and Finance had a meeting, but Director Scott, do you have comments?
We didn't have a meeting this month as there were no expenditure items, but we have requested that the Budget and Finance Committee receive the monthly financial reports ahead of the board meeting, and we'll review those as well.
Good. All right. And finally, the Evaluation Committee did meet, and I'll recognize Director McCrutchen for that report.
Thank you, Chairman Jim. Our committee did meet, and we had a informative meeting going over and reviewing the Public Information Act. I want to thank the attorneys of Tammy and Morgan. Thank you all for such a great job in presenting that to us, and that was what we covered in our last meeting. Very, very informative. Kevin, thank you also, Attorney Kevin, and that team working together. We do appreciate everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, any questions from any board members? If not, we will move on to the consent agenda. We have, looks like 4 different items on the consent agenda. 7A is discussion and possible action to approve the revised minutes of the regular meeting of March 18th, 2026. 7B, discussion and possible action to declare certain furniture and equipment as surplus and approved for sale or disposal. 7C is to receive the district's monthly financial reports, and 7D is to receive the report on payment of bills, payroll, and transfers of funds between line items, and discussion and possible action, if any, thereto. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Right, motion by Director Scott and seconded by Director Noriega. Any discussion? If not, let's just do this one by voice vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. All right, we have only one action item, and let me lead off with this. We are, of course, scheduled to have a public director election at the November general election. Because of the way the law currently is written on the director elections, there's 3 public director positions. Candidates run for a specific position, and if you have more than 2 candidates for a position, and no one gets a majority, then the law mandates that there be a runoff. And that worked with the previous election because it was done at, earlier in the year. But with the November election, the problem that you run into is that there are no other elections scheduled in the month of January. That means that if we had a situation with a runoff, that HCAD has to bear the entire cost of the runoff. Now, that last runoff cost us $3.5 million, which has to be passed on to the jurisdictions and ultimately to the taxpayers. But we shared that cost with the runoff for an open Senate seat. So you had several boxes in the city of Houston that voted in that. And so the county clerk was able to structure the election to where HCAD only had to pick up about half the cost, if you will. With a January runoff, there's nobody else. We'd have to pick up all of it. So realistically, Adam, instead of budgeting $3.5 million, you're looking at budgeting $6-7 million in the budget you've got to develop in just a few months. And of course, the only way to fix this would be for the governor to call a special session and to add it as an item that would be approved. We don't know if the governor plans to do a special session. We don't know if the governor is even aware of this issue. And it occurred to me, just in the interest of potentially saving $6 or $7 million, that it would be no harm to simply write a letter to Governor Abbott, explain that we have no problem with the election. The election procedure has worked extremely well in Harris County. We have a good board that works cooperatively together. We know we'll have another election in November, but call to his attention that the potential cost of the runoff issue, and simply say that we wanted you to be aware of this. If you decide to call a special session for any reason, we would appreciate your consideration in adding a possible fix to the call. So I put it on the agenda. The only board member I've heard back from, I got an email last night from Director Sullivan who said, I'm totally opposed to this. He didn't specify why he's opposed to it, but I think it's a good idea. But I will go ahead and make a motion myself that we authorize the chairman to send such a letter, and then if we get a second, we'll open that up to discussion.
Second.
All right, we have a second by Director Jones, and I'd entertain any comments any board member would care to make.
Yep, I have a couple. So, right, it makes no sense to me. I think the state legislature should foot the bill for this, right? Having the elections, mandating the elections is an unfunded mandate. But at the same time, I oppose the letter. From a strategic point of view, we only get so many times to ask the governor to do something. And if I were to list the top 3 things I would like to see the governor address as it comes to property taxes and the functioning of the CAD, this would probably be listed at number 23 or 24. I also think that unless we have co-signatories with our Harris County delegation to the state legislature, this could appear like we're going over their heads instead of working through the regular legislative process to see the legal change. And because our funding comes from taxing units, ultimately the taxpayer, but through to the taxing units, I would like to see co-signatories from our primary taxing units instead of speaking on their behalf about that cost. I also think we're one of 86 CADs that hold these elections. If this letter's to carry any weight, we need them on as co-signatories as well. So strategically, I just think it might be a bit of a misstep if we don't have all the buy-in. And then just philosophically, if you have a plurality election, that means you're telling a majority of voters they didn't get who they wanted. In place 2 in the last election, I had 43% of the vote, which means 57% of the people did not want me up here. In till we found out something else in the runoff. But you have to give the people a voice by having a runoff or having ranked choice voting or something else. You can't have minority rule through an election.
Well, those certainly are valid points.
Discussion.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know whether we're actually going to take action today. If we were to take action today, I might very well vote no on this. I don't think it's soup yet. I need a better briefing about all the dates and whatever about all that. But not only that, I don't think right now is a time to go tugging on the governor's cape. I think that I'd like to talk about this some more. If I haven't seen a lot of things tabled here or brought back for a discussion later, but I'd like to see that with this. And if we vote on this today, I'm a no for all the reasons that Chairman Scott mentioned, and also the fact that I think the timing is considerably difficult right now. And I just think that people have a right to have the elections the way we have elections. So for all those reasons, I would be a no.
All right. Other comments?
Yes, I'd like to say certainly I am for helping to save money when it comes to the taxpayers. However, when it comes to the election, because there's so much rhetoric right now that's going on around elections and things that's happening with the election, I would like to massage this a little more myself and think a little bit more about what the long-term effects would it be. So if I had to vote today, I would vote with a no, just at the moment.
Yes.
Would the chairman entertain a motion to table this for now?
Yes, I would. And one thing, that's one reason I didn't write a letter myself, because I wanted to see what, the board's feeling was. My concern is that Adam literally is about a month away from having to start building that 2027 budget. And one thing that I would like to know is, and Adam could find out this for us, does TAD intend to take any kind of action? I certainly agree with Director Scott's position that, ultimately a request ought to come from TAD. If the other 86 or other 85 counties feel that way. Of course, the smaller counties, they don't look at multi-million-dollar, Dallas and Tarrant and, Bear, some of those really big ones look at multi-million-dollar cost. We're kind of unique in that we have more people live in Harris County than live, I think, in 6 other states. I made a comment. I introduced Carl Smith one time at a meeting of the International Association of Assessing Officers, and noted that he was the only county assessor in America who had to have more votes than the governor of Arkansas did to be elected county assessor. But I have no problem with tabling this to see what TAD's pleasure is. I just would like for people to start thinking about it because I don't want us to have to spend $7 million either. So I would accept your motion to table.
Thank you. And, clearly this is a serious financial issue, and there's, and time is of the essence, and we understand that as well. If we had a full board, this might very well pass. So I really appreciate your consideration of letting us kind of work this a little bit. I think massaging it's a good word. Thank you, Chairman.
All right. Do we have a second to that motion to table? Second. All right. Seconded by Director McCrutchen. All in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. And that completes our action items, but we have a lot of discussion items today that are of critical importance. And the first is a report on the 2026 market trends. Of course, notices have just gone in the mail on residential property. I'm starting to see the ads on TV from the companies that are soliciting protests. And so, Adam, we'd recognize you to lay out this report.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chairman. And you're right, as y'all are aware, notices have hit the streets. If you haven't gotten calls from your friends yet, they're probably on their way. But we sent over 1.3 million notices in our first notice run, and we'll continue to notice properties as accounts are made available. One thing that was mentioned in your executive summary that I wanted to just to state out in the public record, we were able to get included on the notice of value this year whether or not properties have cracked slabs or some type of deferred issue. As we talked about a few months ago, the board gave us some great ideas on some ways to get some further transparency in that process. And so it sounds like an easy thing to do to get it on that notice, but that notice, because of all the statutory requirements, is very full. But I'm very proud of the staff. They worked, they figured it out, they got it done, and not only cracked slabs, but any type of land influences or other things that may bring people to come visit us are now aware on the notice. It's right there for them to see. So I'm very proud of everyone for working on that. And so with that, again, speaking of proud, I'm so proud of our residential and commercial property groups that worked very hard and tight deadlines to get these values done and get the notices done. And so we're going to have Byron Stanley from our residential department and Danielle Francois will cover commercial in a moment. And so Byron, take it away, please.
Thank you. Good morning, to Chairman of the Board, to the fellow board members. This morning I have the pleasure to go over our 2026 market trends and reappraisal process. To begin, to discuss a little bit about noticing in our timeline, this year is very similar to the previous years. Any account that was ready to be noticed, all property types, including residential, commercial, industrial, as well as personal property, accounts were selected to be noticed. That process began on April 13th, and those accounts that went out in that initial run of noticing have a letter date of April 17th. Diving in and looking at the residential property overview, the residential Houston housing market really has been stable and has shown signs of potential growth, and we have actually outperformed a lot of other major metropolitan areas. This has made it an appealing location for investors, and this is all despite us dealing with the increasing mortgage rates as well as the increase in inflation. One of the key indicators that we look at, trying to get an idea of how the market is doing, is home inventory levels. We actually saw the home inventories levels increase from 2024 to 2025. Currently, we're looking at 4.5 months of inventory on hand, according to Houston Association of Realtors, which is right there where equilibrium says we should be at. Any number between 4 and 6 months is considered equilibrium and a balanced market. Another indicator that we look at is ground up new construction, new home starts. This graph actually shows how many new homes we actually have had starting this year, and we look at it going back 18 years. At the onset, you might look at it and you might say, oh, it's down from previous years, but please keep in mind that we're still in the process of doing new construction. Currently, we have listed a little over 12,000 accounts. That's generated, and it's accounting for $4.7 billion in value. My estimation, once we complete our new construction project, we'll be right in line with about 18 to 19,000 new start homes that will generate anywhere between $6 billion to $6.7 billion in value. Taking a look at single-family home sales volume, comparing those figures from 2025 to 2024, we saw that increase. That number increased to 3.8%. Taking a look at it from a month-to-month comparison, looking at 2024 December to 2025 December, again, we see an increase of 1.2%. Also, taking a look at our average sales prices from 2024, comparing them to 2025, we saw another increase of 2.5%. We're currently looking at the end of 2025 of $426,558 dollars for the average sales price. When we look at the median sales price, however, it really remained flat. We didn't see very much change in that median sales price comparing it from 2024 to 2025. This graph takes a look at our average sales prices and median sales price in December 2025, right before we get to the valuation date. And as you can see, the average number is very close to that last slide I showed of $425,535. And then the median sales price, again, is flat, did not change. It's still at $335,000. Diving in a little bit more about our noticing process. These accounts that were selected for noticing March 13th for residential all included single-family homes and vacant land. Those single-family homes included townhomes as well as condos. As you can see, we actually have about almost 1.2 million parcels were actually noticed during that initial wave. That equals right at $427 billion in value. This graph here is actually giving us a view of how noticing has been taking place over the last 10 years. If you really look at going back to 2020 up to 2026, we consistently have been close to or above that 1.2 million parcels being noticed that initial weekend we select counts. So when it comes to values, what did we do? What happened with the values? What does the market show us? So after doing analysis on the market, when it comes to the percent that were no change, values that are no change this year, we're looking at 13.1%. Values that were increased, 50.1%. And the accounts that actually went down in value, we're looking at 36.8%. Comparing those to 2025 values, there are in a range of those numbers. Looking at the percent change for accounts, when it comes to looking at percent change from value just from the reappraisal process, not because of new construction, we have a 2.37% change in values overall. When you consider new construction, that number is 6.64% amount of change. Overall, 4.39% change. This last slide I have, it gives us a view of our notice values from 2025 comparing those notice values to 2026. As you can see, very little change. It's only a 1.3% change. However, when we take a look at it from a vantage point of our certified 2025 values compared to the notice value of 2026, we do show a 4.4% change. What is that due to? That's due to the appeal process, hearings, litigation, arbitration, those values that were changed and certified compared to now where we notice the values at. That's what's causing that 4.4% change. Which also shows us too that according to the analysis that we did from this year compared to last year, our values are very similar to last year. In a lot of situations, they are really flat in a lot of areas. At this time, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Cal.
Yeah, really interesting information. Just out of general curiosity, on the single-family increase, decrease, no change, right? There's a clear break at that $300,000 mark in terms of the market value. What's driving the market value change at those different price points? Is that because the new construction are at over $300,000? Is it new movers coming in and grabbing homes at $500,000 and not $200,000? What's kind of the driver of that?
You know, from history and looking at that range, as we go up in value, the things that affect the economy tend to affect those individual buyers a little bit less. That's why you start seeing more activity, and that's when we have more values go up when we go to that range. If you look at the chart, you actually see that as we go to the lower end, we see more higher percentage of no change.
Right.
So a lot of that is due to those things when it comes to inflation, the ability to deal with the high mortgage rates. Those individuals that are looking for those type of homes in that price range can deal with those factors a little bit better.
Yeah, it's just elasticity versus inelasticity at the different price
Yes.
point. Yeah, okay, thanks.
Okay, any other questions? All right, if not, very good report.
Okay. Yes, sir. Thank you. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Byron. And yes, now we'll have Danielle Francois from our commercial division to go over their values.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Directors. As introduced, I'm Danielle Francois Matthews.
Oh, excuse me,
It's
Danielle,
okay.
it's been a long time.
It's okay. No, I'm still referred to as Danielle Francois, but my husband, he made me adopt the Matthews. I am the Senior Evaluation Manager for the Commercial Property Division. Our division is under the leadership of Erica Nettles. Erica unfortunately could not be here today, so I will be presenting the market overview on her behalf today. As it relates to the Commercial Property Division, we're responsible for just over 108,000 parcels. The aggregate value for our noticing indicated $269 billion for tax year 2026 in comparison to $264 billion for tax year 2025. The accompanying pie chart indicates value allocation by type. And as you can see, our apartment portfolio is the driver of our total the apartment segment is the driver for drives the most value for our total value at just over 27%. As it relates to office, you can see that office only represents 11%. Historically, office and apartments carried a similar allocation. However, due to the downturn in the market and other economic factors, that relationship has now shifted. Our new construction value for tax year 2026 is $4.7 billion. That mirrors 2025 levels. You can see the allocation by the permanent allocation by property type. Although retail carries a greater number of permits, the apartment sector leads in value. We have over $1.8 billion recorded in new construction value for the apartment segment, and that is followed by retail and warehouse both. Recording over $600 million respectively. This map depicts our new construction activity for 2026. There is a disbursement throughout the county. However, the green dots represent retail, yellow represents warehouses, the purple represents apartment. Although there is a wide spread of distribution, you can see that the primary concentration is in the north, northwest, and central region of the county. Over the next few slides, I am going to cover a brief market insight by property type. So when we look at commercial vacant land, the strongest demand is in Houston Independent School District, followed by Cy-Fair and Aldine Independent School District. So this is a 10-year history of Harris County land sales, and you can see that post-COVID, there has been a decline in commercial vacant land sales. Now, this decline is driven by the availability of land, also driven by economic factors and the current uncertainty in the marketplace. However, the strongest development is still seen in the center of Houston Independent School District, following north through Aldine Independent School District and west into Cy-Fair. As it relates to the office segment, for the first time since 2019, office has recorded its first positive negative net absorption, and that is signaling that there is improving fundamentals. However, new construction remains limited with only 2 notable deliveries in 2026, and the vacancy rates remain elevated. As it relates to apartment sales totaled $1.1 billion, reflecting a 9.2% increase year over year. The average price per unit in Harris County is approximately $173,000 per unit, and that is at an all-time high. Overall, occupancy levels have improved in this segment. As it relates to retail demand has outpaced supply over the last 2 quarters. Houston continues to rank among the nations in retail construction markets. A key trend that I know that you all have probably seen and you're not familiar with is the grocery anchored development, where we will have grocery on the first level and then living above that space. So that particular development is being driven by increasing residential density and our population growth. As it relates to our industrial sector, new supply continues to outpace demand, contributing to softening conditions in some submarkets. However, leasing activity ended the year 8% higher year over year, and that's reflecting that we have a continued tenant demand. As it relates to our reappraisal, as of to date, our notice value for 2026 is $269 billion. That is compared to our certified value for 2025 at $242 billion. That does reflect an 11.2% when we compare certified to notice. However, this particular chart is an indicator of our actual model calibration and specification process. Our overall increase year over year, so when you look at notice to notice, our 2025 notice in comparison to our 2026 notice, that percent change is less than 2%. It's 1.7%, with approximately $4.5 billion of that being attributed to new construction. If you look at the office category, that reflects the largest downward percentage change year over year, and that's driven by adjustments that have been made to the model, which include stabilized occupancy adjustments as well as expense assumptions in response to current market conditions that we are witnessing. In conclusion, 27.4% of our accounts were no change, 57.9% of our accounts increased, 14.6% of our accounts decreased. Now, these results reflect a disciplined, data-driven valuation model aligned with current market conditions and statutory requirements. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Right. Any questions for Danielle on commercial? Well, it's not very, very thorough report. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Ms. Matthews.
All right, Adam, anything on industrial yet?
No, sir. How long will be coming in? What month do you think, Hal? June, usually in June, since again, we've got to get through the rendition process. So he'll come and present in June.
Very good.
Yes, sir.
All right, that brings us to item 10, which is a report on the reappraisal cycle. And also, since we've had some public comments in the past on whether we should reappraise less frequently and we should move to a zonal thing, we thought it might be appropriate to really publicly outline what the law is on those issues. And so I think this will be covered in that. But Adam, I'll call on you to introduce that report.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. And as we know, like Chairman Robinson was saying, this has definitely become a hot topic around the state, and that's moving to a multi-year reappraisal cycle. There's been a lot of discussion, whether it's from the governor's office, other appraisal district board members, staff, the public. And what we really wanted to do when we were asked to do this is really take a look at it with zero bias. Strip away our initial thoughts of what we think is right and look at it just with the facts that we could find. And the great thing is we were able to find several appraisal districts who have already been moved to this and were able to get some stats and real information. So I asked Jason Cunningham to put this together. He's done a very thorough job and has really put in a lot of effort to try to look at this, like I said, with no bias to try to figure out what the best plan is. And so, Jason, please go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Okay. I did not mean for that to do that, but that was fancy. So we'll be coming to you in a few months to actually present the actual reappraisal plan. So this is just to kind of bring together all of the pieces, whether it's the Constitution, the tax code, the comptroller's office, all of the things that basically guide and mandate what our job is. So starting at the top really is the Texas constitutional requirements, and the pieces that are in the Constitution are that we're responsible for appraising property at market value as of January 1 each year. It mandates that taxation be equal and uniform, that its taxation is proportioned to its value, and it sets market value as the standard. The property tax code states that we must reappraise property at least once every 3 years. However, it also states that we may need to do that more frequently to keep up with the market as of January 1. The market value in the tax code is determined by generally accepted appraisal methods, and we won't go into the detail, but for the various property types, it may be a market value approach where we're looking at sales information. It may be a cost approach. It may be an income approach on your income producing properties. And there's a lot of other documents and Appraisal Institute and places like that that define what those generally accepted methods are. And then the code also has a section that if someone protests in the previous year and they were successful in that protest, then the appraisal district may not increase the value unless it's supported by clear and convincing evidence. That standard used to be lower. It was raised to clear and convincing probably 10 years ago, maybe. And so in order to do anything with a value other than not change it, we have to have evidence that's clear and convincing to the folks that are going to hear those hearings. This slide, Mr. Robinson actually reminded me to talk about this. There's been some discussion about, well, why don't you take a third of the county this year, a third of the county this year, and a third of the county, on a 3-year cycle and just divide it up. One of the problems with that is that it is a direct violation of the tax code and the constitutional requirements. And it also creates a lot of equity issues. So if you're reappraising 1/3 and the values are going up this year and we raise these folks but not these other 2 sections, and the next year we go to the second part and maybe values are going down and now we lower them but we don't lower these other 2, you get a lot of inequity if you don't treat everybody the same. And then there's the property value study, which we've talked a lot about. This is done by the Texas Comptroller in specifically their property tax assistance division. And they estimate the school district's value, and there's 2 purposes to the study. First is for equitable distribution of state funding for public education, and the secondary is to look at the appraisal district's performance. Are we doing our part? And I think it was 2 months ago I came to you all and talked about our certified estimates and the ratios, and we talked a little bit about the effect of what we do on the school districts. And just as a reminder, this is kind of where we ended up at the end of 2025. This was after all of the hearings occurred. Some of the litigation was in these numbers, arbitration, and so you can see, we were probably closer to 99, 100% in most of these areas, but after we have 550,000 protests and 10,000 lawsuits and all those things, the ones that scare us are things like Fair, or actually a better example might be Galena Park, where we're at 95.46. So if we drop below that 95, we then have a problem with that school district. So the impacts of the property value study, just kind of going through how this works, the property tax division, assistance division, if we have a school district that falls out of the margin error, or they call it invalid findings, some people will call it a failure, but they will certify the state's estimated value to the Commissioner of Education unless the district is eligible for a grace period. And that's where you get a problem with gaps in funding for school districts. There are some steps leading up to that. They do use these findings in their formulas for determining state aid, and it can potentially cause a loss to the school district. But if you fall out of the margin error or have an invalid finding, whatever you want to call it, failure, if you have that and you haven't had any in previous years, you fall into a grace period. And so the school district does not lose funding that first year, But then if you continue to fail, eventually you get to a point, after 3 findings, it creates an additional audit on the appraisal district in addition to the audits we already have. And then just backing up a bit, we get our 2 big audits, if you will, is for Harris County, we're on a property value study on the odd number years. And then on the even number years, we get the Methods and Assistance Program audit. So we get that every 2 years anyway, but if you fall into this category, you get an additional targeted audit. And then there's been a recent, because this has been such a big issue, it was discussed at the legislature last session, and they ended up passing a Senate Bill 973, which prohibits appraisal district board of directors from adopting reappraisal plans that restricts the chief appraiser from conducting property appraisals necessary to meet statutory requirements. What that means is that since the chief appraiser and appraisal district have to be at market value as of January 1, if the plan doesn't allow that, then it's in violation of this section. And then there's been several appraisal districts out there that have done this, and I reached out to all their chief appraisers. I didn't get quite as much detailed information from HCAD, but mainly because their chief appraiser is brand new. Their board plan is, they said in 2025 and 2026 they're not going to reappraise anything, period. And I got the protest volume. This HCAD is Cleburne, Texas area, and so they had about 20,000 protests in 2024, and I was informally told that it was basically the same, that I didn't get an actual number from them. But the one thing that he did say is that it created a lot of inequity, in particular between property types. He said their residential property is at 95% and above, and their commercial, or really all their other properties, commercial, industrial, whatever they have there, is about 80%. So it's definitely treating those 2 categories differently, and that's mostly, a lot of that is coming out of the hearing season where a lot of those properties were lowered, and then they're just there. No, regardless of what the market's doing, they had to leave them alone. And then the fun part for them is that 7 out of their 9 school districts fell out of the margin on the property value study and went into the first year of grace. So I don't know if they're planning to change anything, but that's where they stand today. And then Bexar County, which is San Antonio, their plan was a little different in that they are not reappraising unless there's new construction, omitted value, or a value decrease. And the protest, they were at 199, they went down in 2024 to 184, and then they had about the same amount in 2025, a slight increase. The chief appraiser there said that protest volume going down was really an effect of their market has not been great, and it has been going down and flat, so they've had some softness in their market, and they have not had a property value study yet. Then Tarrant CAD, and Tarrant CAD, you probably all have seen, has been in the news about this. They were really, I guess, the first ones that did this, and Tarrant County is Fort Worth, Texas. Their plan was to not reappraise in 2025 and 2026. They had a property value study in 25, and 2 of their school districts fell out of the margin of error. The one thing the chief appraiser said there was that they've been in the news. There's been a lot of public interest in what's going on. They had school CEOs and board members from school districts show up to their board meetings, expressed extreme concern about the plan, and then ultimately the chief appraiser said that the appraisal district itself was held responsible for why the school districts had to raise their tax rates. The other things that were mentioned, and I'll talk a little bit more about this, the main thing is the workload. The workloads didn't decrease because they didn't reappraise. They still have to go pick up new construction. They still have to do all the standards of reinspection. They still have to follow the market and try to get as many sales information and market data as they can. They still had to do hearings, so really there wasn't an effect on their actual workload. And then the interesting thing was, you can see there 2023, 2024, 2025. 2025 is the year they did not reappraise, and their protest volume went up over 9%. So that's kind of just what we know that's happened in the other counties. I wanted to quickly go through this example, and these numbers actually match the map in the room over here that we've had printed on the wall, and it's an example of where we can get some issues. So like I look back at, in 2028, we started having a decrease in the market. And you can see where those numbers were increased. And I'm sorry, just to point out, this is residential property only. So we had about 19% of the properties decrease in 2008, then 54% in 2009, 41% in 2010, and our protest volume finally dropped in 2010 because we had done 3 years of decreases. But then it continued. We decreased 67% in 2011, but we had a huge jump in protests. And so, and then 2012, again, 57%. So if you decide to do every 3 years or every year, where are you going to fall? You know, and there's also some news out there that from places that are not happy about not getting the benefit of their decrease. And so for us this year, and keep in mind, Byron's slides are up to date. I did this slide about 3 weeks ago, so my increase, decrease percentage change is a little different than his because we've noticed a lot of other properties since then, but and I think your number was 30% decreased around. And so if we don't reappraise, we don't give those folks the benefit of that reduction. And then we don't know if this is going to be another trend where we continue to go reduce every year next year or the year after that. And one of the things I wanted to mention here was that we still have to do all the work to get to these numbers. So when we're doing, okay, are we raising values? Are we lowering values? Are we keeping them the same? We still have to go through all those processes of collecting the data, going to the field, doing our analysis to get to, is this going up, down, or remaining the same? So there's still, it's really whether you reappraise or not is that last step of, if you will, hitting the button to decide that this is going to be the new value. So just to kind of wrap it up, the issues with not reappraising, you don't keep up with the market, which we're required to do January 1 of each year. It doesn't seem to have an effect on protest volume other than in Tarrant where it actually went up. And then you have issues with the property value study, which eventually can have problems with school funding. And then just to kind of summarize the pieces that we talked about at the beginning is that we were required to appraise property at market value as of January 1. There's a new law which prohibits the board from creating a plan that restricts that. And then with the Constitution, we were required to be in proportion to market value, and we have to be equal and uniform. And with that, I will answer any questions you have.
Jason, that's an excellent report.
Thank you.
Any questions for Jason?
Tons, but we won't do them all here. No, this is really good. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Because it is a topic of conversation. I've raised it. We've heard public. Is he here? I don't see his hat. Mark Ellaby? There he is. The governor's bringing it up now, which then would supersede that 2301.
Right.
Which that legislation makes no sense to me anyway. It doesn't seem consistent with what the Constitution says. But I guess the impetus for this would be twofold from the public's interest, which would be, if you're living in a an area where your property's rising on a consistent basis, it'll rise less if it compounds every other year rather than every year. Is there evidence of that?
Say that again. I don't think I.
So if my property goes up 10% next year and then 10% the next, that would be a greater increase than if we skipped a year and it just went up 10% the next year.
Well, so if you're talking residential property, you have the cap involved,
Yeah.
which you got the 10% cap on the market value. If you were to reappraise, like we're doing now, we're reappraising every year. You're following the market, and so you may get 5% this year, 10% next year, 5% the third year, and you're getting that graduated up. If you only do it that third year, you're going to get all of that increase in 1 year. And
That's what I'm asking. So, because this is the assumption, is that if I have a $100,000 home, it jumps up to 110 next year. Then the next year it jumps up to 121. Well, if it's appraised this year at 100, and then in 2 years I hit that 10% cap, won't it just be 110 or will it still be 121?
well, your market value will go up to whatever the market is, the 121, and the cap would go into place. So on the residential properties, yes, it would, but then it will, every single year, it'll go up 10% until it catches up to that market value.
I think I understand.
So
Let me try it just so I know. Would the property owner who has a homestead exemption on their home experience less of an overall increase on the value, on the appraised value of their home if you adopt it in every other year cycle?
okay,
If we adopt it, this isn't
so
on you. Yeah.
one, we're assuming an upwards market.
Yeah.
And we're
Lots
assuming
of assumptions.
And we're
Yeah.
assuming it's upwards of 10% each year, so that it actually would reach that cap. So if you didn't reappraise and the market went up 10%, and then the next year it went up another 10%, and you reappraised, the market value is going to go up 20.
Yeah.
The appraised value is going to go up 10. So you're going to get some benefit there in that, and again, this is very hypothetical
Yes.
because all of these things are so subject to what is the situation of the property? Is it over 65? Is it, a homestead property? And then the biggest thing, I guess, is that I know it's hard to believe, but almost every year we have values going down. And those are the ones that you don't hear about as much. And those are reappraised. We reappraised and said it needs to go down. And you're going to see a lot of those this year. So back to your point, it really depends on the situation. You might get that benefit because here's the other thing: the cap, you can't go 10%, 10%, 10% if you didn't reappraise. So if we didn't reappraise you this year, and you've stayed the same, and you're not capped, then and the market went up 10%, and then it goes up at 10% again, and we reappraise you, we can't stack those 10% and say, okay, the cap's 20. The cap's still 10 at that second year. So there could be some benefit there to the property owner by leaving it alone that year when it should have gone up. But it also, by not doing what we're supposed to do, the biggest issue is it creates these inequities of, that's for the property owner. They may not see that, but if we treat one segment this way and treat another segment this way, we're violating the Constitution, actually, because we're treating different folks differently.
Yeah, no, the uniform equals really, constraining as it's intended to be and should be.
Right.
Which is why I disagree with chopping the county up into three pieces. If you're going to do it on an every other year basis, just sweep through the county every other year. But that still doesn't mean that if property values, market values are fluctuating, that there's still not going to be inequalities built into that system. As we saw from the presentation earlier, different price points rise and fall at different rates throughout the year, and you're going to have an unequal distribution just depending upon the luck of the draw.
Yes.
All right,
Okay, other questions? Yes.
thanks.
No problem.
I don't totally understand what happens with the school districts and the ratio thing. If the answer to that is too long, I'm willing to circle back some other time, but I don't understand that.
I have, let me unhide a slide real quick.
You were waiting for me.
I was.
See which one of us is going to admit it?
Okay, so this actually, we talked a little bit about this 2 months ago during the certified estimates. And so what happens, this is, I didn't pull this from text, but this is actually just my way of trying to visually show this. So you've got three school districts, School District A, B, and C. And in School District A, the appraisal district, okay, and so the blue part is what we're supposed to do. The gray part is the state funding that they're responsible for bringing to the school district. So we're responsible for valuing at 100% of market value, which after they set their tax rates and collect, should be filling in that 100%, and the state brings in their money. The second example, School District B, the appraisal district appraised at 80% of value. We're supposed to be at 100%, but we appraised at 80%. So we left 20% out there that we should have. And basically what the state comes in, they do their audit, and they're saying, okay, well, you're supposed to be at 100%, but based on what we've done, you're at 80%. So you've left 20% gap that now the state has to come in and fill in. And they will fill that in the first year. I'm sorry, did you have? They will fill that in for during when you're in the grace period. If you continue to have failures, they eventually say, we're not filling that in, and the school district doesn't get that money. And so, and then this was just another example. The school district C is if we were at 70%, now all of a sudden we have a 30% gap that we were supposed to appraise at 100%, so that the local tax dollars would provide that money for the school district based on the value, and the state.
I think I've got that part.
Okay.
How does 80% and 70% go back to the reappraisal? Is that, they're dollars, right?
Yes, and if you think about it, it's a ratio, okay? So it's appraised value divided by sales price is the easiest way. So something, we appraised it at $100,000, we appraised it and it sold for $100,000, we're at 100%. If we appraised it at $100,000 and it sold at $90,000, we're at 90%.
So the farther away you get from reappraising every year, the more the gap grows. That's the bottom line.
That is, and the standard is we are required to be above 95% and below 105. Once we go on any of those outside of that, that's when we have a invalid finding failure in a school district.
So based on what you just said, if we went to a 3-year evaluation system, then that gap widens tremendously,
Yes, ma'am.
which could put the school districts in jeopardy of falling much farther away from what their goal needs to be for their school years.
Yes, ma'am. And we're definitely going to keep an eye on some of these other appraisal districts that they're in it right now, because once you've You know, if their board says we don't want you to reappraise again, I also think, let me bring up this point too. This is the opinion of Jason Cunningham, not Harris County Appraisal District, but I think you're probably going to get some lawsuits over this, because now that you have that new law, if the board of directors continues to restrict that, there may be some issues.
Have we heard from school districts? Are they, like, what are they saying about this?
Local school districts? Well, they, because our reappraisal plan currently is reappraised every year, they have not had any issues with that. I would imagine if we were to do something like that, we would probably have some of them showing up to this meeting to discuss, you know, their concerns. But
Director, I can jump in on that one. I know if you look, Tarrant CAD, like Jason mentioned, is in the news a lot around this issue, and they had a lot of school districts come to their board meetings during that period. There was a little bit of a battle in the media over it on who was right, and so there was a lot of interest from the school districts because, like Director McCrutchen was saying, you end up widening that gap and you can potentially lose funding. So I have not heard of any school district that we've talked to or we've seen that is in support of it. Again, they may be out there. We haven't audited ours, but again, from everything we've seen for the other appraisal districts that have adopted this, they're not in support because, again, they've got to meet their requirements and do what they need. And if the appraisal district isn't valuing as they're supposed to be functioning within the current tax code, they can run into problems. There's potential for changes that could make this happen, but again, right now, legally looking at it, it's not in compliance. The other thing too, I know Jason mentioned it, that was interesting, and it actually came out this week, which is interesting timing. There was an article that I pulled up from Tarrant County, again, from one of their local realtors that said that 190,000 of their homeowners did not get the benefit of a decrease. So again, there's all sides to this, and the main thing we wanted to see is, okay, is there something we're missing as far as workload or protest dropping or anything along those lines? And like Jason mentioned, there's just absolutely nothing. If any case, it looks like the opposite.
Yeah, I mean, I think of everything you said today, the thing that struck me the most is that it didn't just decrease anybody's workload.
Right.
Which means you get a gap with your school districts and all other kinds of unanticipated responses, and it doesn't help you with anything.
No, ma'am.
I mean, I've got that big time.
Jason, your example that you have on the board right now, is this based on evaluation yearly? Or was this based on a 3-year?
My example, and of course this is
Idea.
me just making it up. It's if we had 3 school districts and we appraised them 3 different ways.
Okay.
Like this, I mean, really it could be an example of the third, where we reappraised a third of the county at 100% and left the other 2 sections where they were, and one of them was at 80 and one of them was at 70. We'd be fine in School District A with the property value study, but these other 2 would fail.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You know, one point that Jason made, he mentioned that in the state study, that you're within their margin of error if you're between 95 and 105. But we don't ever want to be at 105. We never want to be over 100. So one of the constraints that HCAD has always followed is that we try to not let it get even up to a hard 100 if we can, because since the measure is the median, if your median is 100, that means you've got a bunch of people who are going to be overappraised.
That's absolutely correct.
Very good report.
Yeah, Jason, fantastic job. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, well, that brings us
Thank
to
you,
our
Jason. You're welcome.
Our next item. There have been some board questions about the numbers of uncertified accounts, so we asked the staff to prepare a report on that. And Adam will recognize you to lay that out.
All right, 1 second. I think Beata had sent it to you. Thank you. All right, and I've got a fancy clicker up here I can use now. Thank you, Beata. All right, so like Chairman Robinson mentioned, we had this really started with one of our school districts reached out, concerned about uncertified accounts and the possibility of accounts sitting for multiple months or even years before getting completed. And so one of the things that I wanted to do when I looked at this was try to figure out, okay, what's going on with this? What is our current plan to be able to remedy this? What are what are the numbers? And so that's what this presentation is on. And so first off, why do accounts not certify, within the tax year that they're in? And there's a plethora of reasons. One of the main ones is we have in our system holds that are generated to try to catch things from going out incorrectly. Some would say maybe we're a little bit too cautious with sending things out, but the last thing we want to do is send out an account that's incorrect or has something wrong with it that then the property owner and the assessor's office have to go back and forth fixing, process corrections. So we have quite a few holds that we work throughout the year to try to keep accounts from being able to hit certification at the wrong value. So that's a big piece of it, is these working holds, and I'll be talking about that more here in a second, which is why I'm bringing that up. There's also some system issues we sometimes have. There are certain parameters that accounts must meet. Our system is complex, and the way that it works, there can be things that appraisers have a hard time seeing that there is an issue on the account. Things with the way that the hearing center code was coded. Again, I could get into a lot of weeds on it, but basically just things that it takes training for them to be able to identify to make sure that these accounts are ready to go out the door. Statutory wait times, a good example of this is when we have personal property and we're trying to gauge whether or not what was sent in was correct. We have a mandatory 45-day wait time that the property owner has to get us that information. You add in mail time and the time for us to work it, you can have some statutory wait times that cause things to hold up for a period of time. The other one is omitted improvements. I'm going to go to a graph in a second with kind of what accounts we have certified and not, but some of these, you can see an account that's maybe on hold or uncertified from, say, 2023, but the reason is we just picked it up. There are omitted improvements out there, and there's a section in the tax code that tells us how to handle those. And so that can sometimes look like an account that's been out there for a while, but a lot of them end up being where they actually just got picked up recently. And so the good news is we really are doing a fantastic job. I mean, the staff, you look overall 5-year total, we're at 99.95% of our accounts are completed and certified. You look in previous years, we're right at 100%. I mean, for 1.7 to 1.8 million accounts, for us to have in the hundreds in every year for accounts that still need some work done on them is really a testament to the awesome job that the staff do. The problem comes in, though, is that every single one of these accounts that are not certified is a property owner waiting for some completion on their tax bill for whatever reason. And we, again, if we're going to live by our value of first-class customer service, these people need to get their accounts finished, get them out the door, get it to the jurisdiction so that they can do their job, and we're doing our job taking care of the property owners and the jurisdictions that we serve. So again, looking at the numbers, they look really good, but that said, like I said, we want to be able to get everyone's accounts to a point of completion. And so what I did was I reached out to Jason Cunningham, Kyle Whitener, who's one of our kind of like special project gurus, and I just said, hey, we've been working these holds and working these accounts for the same way for 30 years. Let's come up with a fresh way to look at it and come up with something new, use some technology we have. And that's what they did, and they came up with a fantastic plan. So we've created now a holds team, a team of experts who are identified from different divisions, because a lot of times what will happen, there's really two issues that come into play with this. You're an appraiser, you're working hard, you're getting your work done, and then you move into the next part of the season when work dies down, and then you start working your prior year holds, your prior year accounts. And then you're working them, and then the new year starts, and they just move to the next year, and the eyes get off the ball on the prior year stuff. So we identified that we've got to make sure that we're keeping our eyes on these prior year accounts. Also, there's a lot of times that different divisions have different parts to play to get the account finished. You can have a split out of an account, and then it has to go to the residential department to figure out what building goes on it. Then it has to go back to the exemptions team so that they can make sure the exemptions are applied correctly. And so there's a lot of hands that need to go onto these accounts, and sometimes they will stall out in different divisions. So what we've done is created this group. They cross division boundaries. We have within our team's communication system that we use, we have a chat set up so that they can notify each other immediately whenever it's time to move on and do something to the account. Like I mentioned at the beginning, there's a lot of complicated things in our system that staff may not know. And so we're looking at updating and documenting recurring issues so that we can have faster solution times. And then you can actually, a lot of times, which a lot of us here have done in previous roles, you can go create like SQL reports and go proactively find these before they become an issue. So a lot of the teams do that, and we're going to try to identify as many of these we can once we figure out what those occurring issues are. And then the staff are going to meet once a month during the week leading up to rolls, just to make sure that everything that we have ready to go out on a roll to the assessor's office is ready and is not held up for some reason, and they look complete. And I'm really happy to say that this team has been put together. They've been meeting. They're working on this documentation. And from when this was brought up to now, we've already reduced the number of holds a further 39%. So it's been effective. It's working. And again, 99.9% of them are done, but we need to take care of everybody. And so that's why this was put in place. And that's how we're planning on handling these prior year accounts.
Any questions on that report?
Comment.
Yes.
I really like that. I like all of the cross-boundary, all of it. I think that's a great way to get at that, and good job to everybody that was involved.
Yeah, thank you.
That's probably the lowest number of uncertified accounts that we've ever had in HCAD's history. Also, I might add.
Yeah, they're doing fantastic. They're doing a great job.
All right, recognize Teresa Terry for the Taxpayer Liaison Officer report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to you and to the other directors. My oral report to you tracks very closely to the report that you received in your board book for the month of April. The majority of the issues were associated with ownership this time, and a number with exemptions. One other thing that's of note, the TLO office, for some reason, after I've been doing this since 2012, so this is about 14 years. I'm starting to get a lot of communication regarding business personal property for some reason. I think a number of them are coming from companies that were new for 2025. I'm not certain of that. That's just a projection. But I've been working very closely with Lauren and with Hal to get those. Some of them have questions associated with the rendition process, so I think these are newbies to the process, and others are just sending in information up to including this morning. So that concludes my report. I'd like to also report that those persons that you ratified recommendations from the board, from the committee last time, those members have been brought on board and sworn in, and they attended their first meeting, full board meeting of the review board on April 10th. So they're all been onboarded and ready to get their training. The comptroller training is next week, which is a mandatory training for them. And just wanted to let you know that that concludes the TLO's work with the review board to get the interviews completed and to get all of those applicants onboarded. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Terry? If not, Teresa, thank you very much. Our next item is discussion of matters between members of the board and the chief appraiser pursuant to Tax Code Section 6.15. Adam, do you have anything you'd like to bring up?
No, sir.
Any board members with something to bring up? All right, if not, this brings us to the executive session. We'll now enter executive session held for the purposes authorized by sections 551.071, 072, 074, and 076 of the Texas Government Code. The board will retire to executive session. The time is 11 a.m. Okay, are we live? All right, the board has returned from executive session. The time is 11:53. There was no action taken in the board meeting, so that brings us, or earlier in the executive session. That brings us to item 15, pending litigation, including consideration and possible action to approve settlement of pending litigation, pending appeals to the State Office of Administrative Hearings, and pending arbitrations as presented. Do I have a motion to approve the proposed settlements?
So moved.
All right, motion by Director Scott. Who was the second?
Melissa.
All right, we have a second by Director Noriega. Any discussion? Because of abstentions, we'll do a roll call on this one. Ms. Bluford Daniels, Ms. Tracy Jones
I abstain.
abstains, Ms. Lamont Dixon, Ms. McCrutchen,
So moved, yes.
Ms. Noriega,
Aye.
Ms. Ramirez is absent, Mr. Scott,
Aye.
Mr. Sullivan is absent, the chair votes aye. Our four members present vote aye. There is one abstention, motion carries. Item 16 is report on Section 2525B corrections. Mr. Bogart, do we have any such corrections sought this month?
Yes, we do, Chairman. And as you know, periodically I'm required to report to the board on corrections under Section 2525B, which the Chief Appraiser is able to make under his own motion. I have the quarterly report available if anybody'd like to view it.
All right, well, that completes our agenda. We stand adjourned at 11:54.
Good meeting.